Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Liza, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone from the East Coast. Hello, Liza. I guess I say it, Liza. Uh, John, hello, everyone from Glasgow. All my buddies are showing up. Yay! I just let a few moments pass here um, while people are beginning to arrive. And although if you already have a burning question you're ready to share, by all means, share it. Um, as you all know by now, I don't plan anything. I don't. I don't have. Sometimes a subject will pop to mind when I'm actually setting up the scheduling the live stream. Sometimes not, and today is one of the days when not. So we'll see what happens. Ava, hello, Ava. Good to see you. So good to see you always. Brian in Virginia. Dave Rose, hello, Dave in Massachusetts. Uh, Kumar, greetings from India. Hello, Kamal, the uh, the motherland of Advaita Vedanta, which is what we discuss here. This is where it came from, going all the way back to the Vedas, way back into prehistory. Um, Definitely the motherland of spirituality, not religion. Plenty of religions, but spirituality, non-dual inquiry. Ursula from Madeira Island. Hello, Ursula. Yvette from South Africa. Yvette here again. Glad. I'm so glad you're here. Robert Goldberg in Henderson, Nevada. Hi, everyone. So I do invite everyone who pops in to just say hello and where you're watching from. And and if this is your first time coming to one of my satsangs, that's really wonderful for me to know. That way I can make sure, and also if it's your first time, if you've had any kind of experience with non-dual inquiry or non-dual teaching before, uh, it has become uh, very ubiquitous now. It's amazing how many places in the last 10 years, how many I've gone from seeing zero references to non-duality or awakening or pure consciousness or any of the common words, phrases that are used in non-dual uh, conversation, to I'm hearing them all the time. They've It's been kind of appropriated by popular culture to uh, which doesn't really understand it. And those of you who are familiar with me um, know that I have mixed feelings about the uh, information, the quantity of information that's available on non-dual inquiry. I mean, it's just millions of hits now. You can type non-duality into YouTube, and you'll just see thousands of references to it. Google even more. Um, the positive side of that is that it's just wonderful to see this kind of dialogue, this kind of spiritual inquiry going on. Sorry about my eye. It gets kind of get kind of dusty here in northern New Mexico. Um, it's just really gratifying that there is access to this kind of information because traditionally there wasn't. This was the kind of information you got in a monastery or an ashram, and even then, only after quite an extended period of time of apprenticeship and learning, and really being prepared to to properly engage in non-dual inquiry. Well, that's the other side of it that I lament, and that is that preparation, that teaching to go along with all the information. The context, the the way in which you are prepared emotionally, spiritually, and even physically for the depth of inquiry that non-dual inquiry is. And so it's kind of a two-edged sword, right? So there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of arguments. I still get nasty comments about about stuff pretty regularly. Not a lot of them, fortunately, but without truly understanding it, which means you need some kind of a exposure to a teacher, right? In person is of course the best, but if you can't get in person, the wonder of the modern internet is that you can have access to somebody teaching this rather than just somebody talking about it or your own reading about it and that sort of thing. Because Christ put it beautifully. He said, "You can't put new wine in old wineskins, right? It'll go, yeah, it'll it'll ruin the vintage." Yeah, you might say. But what he's referring to is that when we hear new information, even something as uh, dramatic and as profound as non-duality, without somebody to guide you, our tendency will be to try to put it into the same context. Right? Non-duality destroys the context, right? It's not about just having a different belief system. It's about eliminating all beliefs. Our entire context, our worldview, our perceptions of things are all what get challenged. And without the proper guidance for that to happen, there's a tendency to just kind of appropriate the ideas and the language into the same context, and then people go, "Well, this doesn't work. What's about with this? This is very confusing," and and so a great deal of it gets lost. So it's encouraging to me to have people want to show up to make sure they get it right. Right? That there isn't any confusion, that it isn't just kind of a mix of different kind of spiritual ideas kind of jumbled together, that it really is a very uh, precise and very well, precise is the best word, but it's very poignant and it's very penetrating. And in order to deeply challenge our own assumptions and beliefs requires courage. Right? We remember our whole identity, our way of living, our sense of security is all based in our view of ourselves. And if we begin to discover that that view isn't true, there's a sense of discomfort which almost inevitably arises. And that's the time when you really need the help for somebody who's gone through that to explain to you what happened, so that you don't think you've made a mistake or you've fallen off the wagon or something is terribly wrong, which everybody does. That first time we have a wonderful insight, and then before you know, the next thing you know, you're yelling at somebody. We have to understand the whole context of that the non-dual insight, as it begins to penetrate the nervous system, will bring all sorts of unhandled, unprocessed material to the surface. It is the most traumatic, um, therapeutic for trauma of any process out there, and that's not even its intention. It just is a byproduct of coming to know yourself as you are. Everything that you're not begins to come to the surface, and without the proper preparation, that can be overwhelming. But if you recognize where that you are always standing in the place of the awakened witness, the one who is aware of it, then uh, then those things can come up, they can be seen, and they can fall away, and they won't touch you. Right? They will leave no mark. So on that, I've been chatting for a while here. Let me go back and say hello to everyone. Mary says hi from Niagara Falls. Hi, Mary. Kamal has a question. Why does it feel like I'm behind my eyes, and how to disprove that experientially? Um, I'm going to redirect your query a little bit, because it is just a feeling that I am somewhere behind the eyes. Now, if you actually go look for that something, you won't find it, right? But that's only because we're used to thinking of ourselves as being inside the body and experience something outside the body. Matter of fact, that is the model. That is the scientific model. That's the model the whole world believes. That somehow there's consciousnesses in this body, whether it be a soul in the body or a little piece of brain in the frontal frontal lobe, right? That is the structure of consciousness. That's the model. This world out there is real. It exists objectively from me. So what you begin to explore is, okay, that's the assumption. First, question it. Is that really true? I mean, when you are asleep at night having a dream, you have exactly the same experience of being behind a set of eyes, right? Maybe with a completely different body. When you awaken, you recognize that that was a subjective experience and you weren't behind any eyes. There weren't any eyes. There wasn't a body. It was all a play of consciousness. It was all images in the mind, but in the state of mind of the dream, it was experienced as a concrete reality. Now, the waking dream is no different. So, one thing that comes to mind for you is it is a direct path exercise where you can take an object, any object, sitting on your desk. Say there's a teacup or a mug sitting on your desk, right? Or the coffee table, wherever you happen to be sitting, right? Any object whatsoever, and you just explore your direct experience of the object without any assumptions or thoughts or memories about it. Now, if you do that through sight, and you can do this with every one of your senses, and in fact, I go through all 5 of the senses in inner reconciliation level 3, when we really focus on breaking down these perceptions. Um, when you're looking at an object and you're only focused on what you are seeing, what's actually being seen, you'll see that all that's being perceived is a difference between color and shade. That's all the eye discerns. Now, that cup sitting in front of you that you're looking at, that you are seeing, drop the word cup, because the actual experience didn't say to you cup. That's something that came from the mind. That particular shape had a name applied to it, and then a character and a purpose. But if you look at the character, the purpose, the entire experience, none of it is actually in the cup. It's all in your perceiving of it. So what's actually here? And then you can begin to probe even deeper. Well, what, if anything, in my experience of this cup is indicating to me concretely that that cup exists independently of my perceiving of it? You keep exploring that, and you'll discover that nothing, that there's no information in the actual experience itself that is telling you that that thing exists independently of your perceptions of it. Now, this is a direct path exercise, an exploration you can make all by yourself. And you can do it, and it'll be quite clear that no, there isn't anything. So now what happens is you're confronted with a very powerful choice to make. One is what you're actually experiencing, which is absolutely no evidence of an external world, and your belief about it, which has a momentum and a power. and now becomes, which do I trust? My own direct experience or what I have been taught? And that's a very powerful place to be. And the same thing holds true about feeling like you are behind the eyes. Right? Is that actually what you're feeling, or is that an interpretation of what you're feeling? Because if you had on 3D glasses, right, the virtual reality glasses, right now, you would be in a world that does not exist, that is only perception, and yet you would feel as if you were behind your eyes perceiving it. So that sense of presence, that sense of I that is behind the eyes, focus on that. Turn the attention away even from the cup towards the I that is experiencing the cup. Because knowing what that I actually is will put an end to that question experientially. Right? So it becomes a wonderful, fun thing for you to simply explore. Yeah. Thanks, Kamal. Leanne. Hello, Leanne. Your good friend, Leanne. So good to have you here. Rosario in Spain, my man. Anja in Germany. Hi, Anja. David and Elaine. Hello, everyone from Southeast England. We thought the wall of your room in Seattle was nice, but I have to say your new background is nicer. It's true. Yeah. What can I say? Leave it to nature to give the best possible background you could have for a show. I suppose if I wanted to do a little bit better, I could actually put some lights here so my face was a little bit more illuminated. It wouldn't be so backlit, but that's a lot prettier than I am. So I'll let you look at the background and listen to me. Linus, hi from Germany. Hello, Linus. P.S. is hello. Yes, my first experience with non-dual inquiry in this lifetime. Wonderful. Wonderful. I am so delighted to have you. I'm so glad you came to me. um, and actually are getting some back and forth, some actual teaching, because this stuff can be confusing if you don't have a guide for it. If you do, it's not a problem. Yeah, you'll get right to it. Oh boy. Okay. Can you hear the conversation that's going on over there? Somebody let me know, because I'm hearing it, and if you're hearing it, I'm going to have to move, because I'm not the only one who lives here, so I can't kind of dominate the place. So if you can hear the other people talking, I will move somewhere else where it's quieter, so it doesn't disturb this. Okay. So please let me know. Kamal says thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Let's see. Mary Sykes says, "Can you? You can't hear. Good. 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 Can you clarify the? You don't hear at the moment. Wonderful. Thank you all. That makes it easier. So, because I like this place, it's very one of the hard things to do because I'm in the mountains and there's trees around, but the sun is, I've got to find a place where there's not too much sun. Otherwise, my equipment overheats and it stops. Mary says, "Can you clarify the platform about where you will be putting your EFT courses?" And yes, I agree. There are a lot of non-dual teachers out there that are not quite quite ripened as you are. I think some are good mimickers. Yes, that's true, and rarely is it somebody who's taking advantage of it. Most of them are just a bit naive and maybe aren't ready to be taught, but get the idea that I've watched enough YouTube videos. I know what I'm saying. Let's see. I will be clarifying I'll be sending out an email about the new platform in EFT and all of that. As soon as my two assistants are going through all the material right now. You all know Alicia, but I also have Barbara who's helping me out. And as soon as they tell me that it passes their tests, I'll be I'll be letting everybody know where to get to it and how it works and all of that. So, so thanks for asking, Mary. Russell from South Africa. Hello, sir. Durban, South Africa. Yvette says, yes. Hi, GP. I'll ask my question again. Is it normal? Does this happen where when you feel like you woke from a coma to a dream that everything and everyone seems foreign? How does one deal with this? Um, well, it's an indication of when something inside of us wakes up, and it can be very subtle, right? It can just be a subtle shift of perception, a subtle shift in our feelings, or it can be very, very dramatic and be and really kind of knock us on our butt a bit, right? Um, and in that context, things can start to look a bit different. Now, that's not a problem, right? It happens all the time, right? It's happened all through our lives at every stage in which we've changed, like puberty and different places along our lives when things just didn't quite look the same. Um, Usually, though, there's a feeling of continuity, whereas an awakening like this has a real disturbance in the sense of continuity. And and when it happens at a particular time of life, for most of us, it happens in adulthood, so that um, the sense of identity has actually concretized. It's actually solidified, right? And we're used to being a certain person. And when this kind of transformation takes place, that person is no longer dominant. Who you thought you were doesn't have the same kind of power and authority. It doesn't. You're not seeing through the same eyes anymore, and so things start to look different. But because it has solidified. We've grown so used to it. This is the person we are. This is who we've been walking around as. It can feel quite disorienting. Right? How do you deal with it? Recognize that it is simply a transformation taking place in your nervous system that is used to making transformations, right? That's what it does, is adapts to the environment, and it will adapt to this. The most important thing is to not make a big deal out of it. Just notice, well, this is what it is. Everything seems foreign right now. Now, that's not a problem, is it? Right? That's not a problem unless I decide that everything seeming foreign is a problem, right? But again, that's the mind saying that, right? But the experience itself is simply a shift in perception where things don't look the same, right? And if you take it just like that, in its total neutrality, and you don't add some kind of extra story on top of that about how this is a problem, how do I deal with it? Just notice that there's a disturbance, that whenever our normal way of doing things is disturbed, that the nervous system has a certain kind of anxiousness and anxiety. um, then you just notice that that's happening, and notice where you are. Right? Are you in the disturbance, or are you witnessing disturbance? Right? The mind will try to pull you back into identification with the self, or identification with the disturbance. It's going to attempt to do that to get you to re-identify with some kind of story. Well, this is right. Just notice that's happening. Say, oh, I see that that's happening. Who's the I that's seeing it? The I that's seeing it is the awakened one. That is what's awakening. The guy in the dream doesn't wake up, right? You are waking up to the fact that this isn't you, and it never was. And that sense of spaciousness there, and hopefully you're feeling it right this moment, right? Right, can just grow. But that's what the mind does, is try to pull you back into identification with some kind of storyline, like this is a problem. It's not a problem. It's awakening. It's the end of problems. But it's unnerving for the mind and for our normal way of doing things, because it is a completely different way of being. And the nervous system, it'll take some time for the nervous system to get used to it. So, does that answer it for you, Yvette? Thank you for that wonderful question. Um, Everybody's telling me they can't hear the conversation going on. Good. If you can, please let me know. Then I'll just find another place where there might be some shade. I think around the side there, it's growing. Yes, I might be able to actually move around there. um, Kamal say, when you say pay attention to yourself, the mind says for how much time, and then what? Um, all right, you always are yourself, right? That's self-evident. You always are what you are, right? Duh, right? But our attention is often focused elsewhere, and there is what arose in every single one of us is a sense of identification with what we are experiencing. And so all of our attention is going on to the experiencing and the person we think we are, and off of what is of you, which is actually experiencing, the one who is experiencing. Now, in the beginning, this can be like a practice where, like the meditations I do in the morning, where you simply turning your attention back away from all the things that normally engage your attention. Right? I can't say point you back to you because you're the one looking, so you can't be seen, right? I'd have to take you out of you, take you over here, turn you around, and say, "See, there you are." Can't do that, can I? Right? You're the one looking. So the motion inward to seeing yourself is really a withdrawing of attention from everything that normally get the attention goes to notice that to which the attention is reporting. Attention isn't reporting to itself. Whatever is in its field of view is being registered in something conscious, in the consciousness that is perceiving it. And obviously, consciousness perceives things unconsciousness doesn't. So there are times when you can focus your attention to become increasingly aware of just the sense of being and the you that is not what is being experienced, but is the pure experiencer, the pure witness. And you can go beyond that as well, but let's just keep it for there right now. Now, that becomes a regular practice. Eventually, what happens is it tends to just kind of spill over into everyday life, so that every experience that's happening, there'll be kind of an automatic response that notices the experience happening, the reactions in the nervous system, and an awareness of them. That's the awareness of the self. That is the idea, not the idea, that is the actual self itself, right? That to which all of this is reporting, the absolute, the ultimate. Right? So by paying attention to that, right, it's not that you're just going to sit around and chant Om all day. It means that eventually, in every experience, you're also going to be simultaneously aware of yourself. So you don't get completely drawn into the experience and lose the sense of yourself, because once you do, that's when stress comes and anxiety and worry and all of that, because it's basically you've disconnected yourself from yourself. You've disconnected the human life from the source of human life, which is that inner sense of being. So, how much time? Um, I do meditations when I lead meditations in the morning. They're short, 10, 15 minutes. I've got some that are longer. I actually have one called Meditating on the Meditator that I'm going to make available. I was trying to get it done in order to make it available to you guys now, but it isn't. I have to put it up yet. So that is a nice way of doing it. But all of my morning meditations are always the same, and it doesn't take much to just yes, this is where I am. I am always here behind the lens. I am always here. I am always that which is experiencing. I am never the experienced. And that can just deepen and deepen and deepen to the point where everyday life does not distract you from it. It's like your attention takes in both at the same time. It's just this deep inner knowing that I am, and I couldn't, and nothing else could be happening if I wasn't there first. And and so it begins to settle in. And sometimes it can happen very quickly, very dramatically, where the whole thing just kind of dissolves away, and you know that this is you. This is the real you, the unmixed you. Jeff, do you have a definition of freedom? Um, yes, the sense of well being that is completely independent of all circumstances. Freedom means self contained. Right? If any quality that I seek, happiness, prosperity, freedom, love, is contingent upon circumstances, I'm not free. Right? I am dependent upon those, and in some sense, maybe even enslaved to those. Anytime we put a condition on contentment or wisdom or happiness or any quality, the moment we put a condition on it, we now become subject to those conditions, and I am no longer free. Freedom is only realized when it is seen, when you are seen to be who you actually are, and that your nature and all the attributes that arise from that nature are completely inherent, self sustained, and have no dependency on anything external. And then you'll find that suffering is the opposite of freedom, and that all of our suffering comes from putting conditions, projecting out the very qualities that actually you and you that you possess inherently. They don't even need to be found in you. You are them. And so that's freedom. Freedom must have that in order to be free. Any conditions, it's not freedom. Right? Now that doesn't mean in everyday life we don't have dependencies and interdependencies like in relationship, work, all sorts of things. Right? In human life, it's relative, right? And we're always trying to work out the best way to have the most freedom with dependency and all of that. But what we're talking about is the inherent experience of peace and contentment. And the ultimate spiritual freedom is the recognition that you are the whole. That the I am that is hearing my words right now is the I am, the only I am, from which everything else has arisen, and therefore it has no conditions. Does that answer it for you, Jeff? Great question. John M. Could a sage accomplish similar tasks as Navy SEALs who push themselves beyond unthinkable human possibilities? No. Muji isn't a sage, and he's definitely not going to be doing that. He likes pasta too much. No, a sage is not a magician. It's not this yogi with city powers. There are some people who have that. Some people who can that they acquire those kinds of things. Um, but no, just like the sage can't speak every language simultaneously and things like that. That's the mind likes to associate spiritual freedom with great accomplishments, great feats of wonder. If the sage was young enough and so inclined, they certainly could train to do that, and the sage would have no mental or emotional obstacles to achieving it. It wouldn't have to go through, because a lot of that is mental. The kind of level that in, or like the martial artist or any kind of extreme training as an athlete, right, or as a musician. You have to break down the inner walls of your own limitations, as well as just practicing and acquiring the skill. So from that point of view, the sage would definitely have a leg up. People wouldn't have those mental blocks. They would see anything as absolutely uh, possible. But 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 they would have to want to do that. There would have to be something for them to do that, and for the sage, there's nothing to accomplish. Remember, the sage is not someone who has wisdom. That's how we see them. We see somebody and they exude wisdom, or they have the right answers and that sort of thing, or they're very good at teaching the thing, and so we say, that's a sage. We think of wisdom and this kind of non-dual understanding as if it were a personal possession, right? That there's a person who possesses this. It's not true. The wisdom appears in human form. The person's gone. That's what makes the sage, right? If there's a person there, it's not a sage. The sage or the guru is the absence of the person. So the only thing that's appearing is the wisdom. That is the Buddha mind, the Buddha knowledge. I am the Buddha, the awakened one. That I is not a person who possesses wisdom. It is wisdom itself appearing in human form. It's the avatar. It's the word made flesh. It's and dwelling among us. Um, so be clear about that. How that manifests in form, right, is anybody's guess, and there are no limits on it. It could appear as a Navy SEAL. It very well could. There's nothing saying it couldn't, right? But I'm referring to the transcendent wisdom and not to the person through which it is being seen. Thinking that the person possesses this wisdom is like thinking that the singer is in the radio. They're not there. Right? That's simply the instrument, the vehicle through which it is appearing, the timeless appearing in the field of time, the transcendent or formless appearing as form, the nature of the formless manifesting itself in form. But the character, nature, and every quality of the form isn't in the form, it's drawing from the formless, which is the actual source of all qualities. The moon is beautiful, but it has no light of its own. It reflects the sun. The human form that wisdom takes can be quite beautiful, or not. Right? Nisargadatta was hardly a beautiful human being. He was rather homely, right? But it was pure wisdom that appeared through him. And awakening is simply when we awaken to the fact that that's who we are and not this person. And then the person dissolves, the person disappears, and what remains is the unfiltered reality manifesting itself in human form. Then the human form itself is transformed. And at that point, if it takes whatever form it takes, right? Could be a mom, could be a real estate agent, could be a Navy SEAL, you know, it's it, how it manifests itself is is anybody's guess. That's the wonder. That's the mystery. It will manifest, no, as it has to. Um, Is I say that right? Ratan, or se? Um, I do like to try to pronounce words, people's names correctly when I can. So if you can give me a little help. Namaste, G. So blessed to join with you. I love you. Blessed to have you. Amy, hello, Amy. Great to be here. Great to have you. Sneh asks, why is mind powerful opponent for self? Why it does not want to go to its home? Um, that's only how it appears, right? That's not actually what it is. Why is mind such a powerful opponent? Well, who said it was a powerful opponent? Mind said it was a powerful opponent, right? You walk up to somebody who's totally weak and they say, oh, I'm really strong. Well, who's telling you that they're strong? Well, they are, right? Don't believe it, right? Which is more powerful, the truth or a lie? Right? The lie can cover the truth for a while, but can it actually destroy it? Can it actually stop it? Of course not. So that thought, mind is powerful, is arising because there's obviously a sense of identification in you has moved closer to the home and is feeling more of that calling inward, right? When that happens, energy is being drawn away from the mind. And remember, there's a momentum there, right? There's a momentum, there's habits of thought and emotion that have been in place for lifetimes, right? And certainly this life, right? Because that's all conditioning is. And it's just part of the way the nervous system works. It's how it sustains itself and feels stable and functions in the world, right? What you're doing is you're taking this whole constellation of thought, feeling, and sensation is revolving around a central assumption, which is this self-image that you're holding. When you begin to challenge that this is going to get a little bit chaotic. It's going to want to get you to return to stability. Now, that's just natural to the nervous system. It always wants to seek a stable position. That's its job. Stay safe, right? And so we want things to stay the same because if they're the same, I know I'm okay, right? It may not be great, but at least I know I'm safe. I know how to deal with this. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal with that. Poking right at the center of that and challenging the center around which all of this is being held together, you're going to get a little bit of resistance. And that's what you're experiencing, that resistance. Now, that resistance is clever, right? So it's going to say, why is the mind so powerful? It's so powerful. It's overwhelming me. Wait. Slow down, right? Where are you in this picture? Are you being overwhelmed? Is it powerful against you? Or are you always the witness of its actions, whether it be very resistant, very maybe very loud and aggressive? Right? Where are you? Right? It gets really loud and aggressive, and then the mind says, "See, you haven't got it. Oh, no, oh, you're not going to get this." And it's like, why doesn't the mind want to return home? And then get you into conversation about the mind. Well, the mind doesn't exist. It's just a bunch of thoughts. It's not a thing that can be powerful or not. Where's your attention? Right? It's not powerful. It's just doing what it's designed to do. Where are you? The one that's sitting there watching it. Is it really overwhelmed? Which has more powerful what power? What's being watched or the one watching? Which one comes and goes? What's being watched or the one watching? That which is watched comes and goes, but you never come and go. So which one's more powerful? Which one has really holds all the cards? You are the self. It's you that's going home. The sense of I is going home. And in that process, it is divesting itself of all the thoughts and beliefs. And eventually, don't worry, any kind of chaos that results will eventually subside as everything begins to now reorganize itself around the real you. And that's when that wisdom begins to just sink into the body and into your life. And as it does that, that's what people call the sage, where the whole human existence, the whole human nervous system begins to reflect the true identity, the true transcendent sense of self, and divests itself of the false sense of self. And it's simply a process that everybody goes through, right? But when you're aware of it, you're going through it, you're no longer the seeker. You've found. But that finding now has to penetrate. It has to colonize the rest of the system. It has to sink. It has to go from being an insight into being something that's actually felt until finally it completely takes over every aspect of your life, which can be a gradual, can happen quickly, or it can be a very gradual process. It's irrelevant whether it's fast or not, right? Does that does that answer it for you, Sneh? Mary says, I can understand what Yvette was asking you, as I had a felt sense that something was trying to shift in me, and I was afraid because my religious upbringing, what I was feeling was evil. Then I realized that it was what was trying to be let go of. I was frightened because I'm not used to this way of being. That's it. Yes, you're simply not used to it. The nervous system, remember, the nervous system is nothing but a habit maker, a habitual pattern, right? It makes those habits, those patterns of reaction and response in reaction to the environment, right? That's what it is. It's not a conscious entity. It's kind of an organic computer. Its whole job is to adapt itself to the environment for the sole purpose of surviving. Once it has adapted to an environment, which we all do in childhood, more or less, right? It tends to want to stay there, right? It tends to want to return back to that place of stability. Well, growth, our growth and development, spiritually, personally, on any level, is of course the direct opposite of that. And we all crave, even in self-help and personal development, we want to evolve and grow. It's humanly natural, and this is the essential human conflict. That need for safety and stability and everything to stay the same, and this other need, equally powerful, to grow and expand, which means change, right? This is the conflict, right? Central conflict, like clearly identified in the interreconciliation courses. Both of these are natural trajectories, right? And if we're ignorant of them, it's just push pull, safety, freedom, safety, freedom, safety, freedom. It just keeps going back and forth, and it becomes a pendulum. But once they're both understood, and you remove yourself from taking sides, and you sit in the middle of what I call the peacemaker, these tend to harmonize. Safety then begins to support freedom, and freedom acknowledges the need for safety, and so growth happens in the sweetest and most loving way. And that's the perfect environment in which all the old traumatic material and lifetimes worth of just of energy that has been unhandled can come to the surface very naturally, without abreactions or huge trauma, without reliving the traumas. They can just kind of the energy can just kind of come up and and discharge. But if we understand that that's what's happening, that it's absolutely necessary that it happened, that this is the way it works, we can just kind of calm. We can settle into that role of the peacemaker, withdraw all of our ideas as to what should be or what shouldn't be, right? And then with our effort to control it now being withdrawn, the natural flow can begin to happen. Nothing is restricting anymore. And life will find that perfect balance, that perfect flow, because that's its nature. Hello, Alessandra. Welcome. Hi, Sarah. Great to be here. Great to have you. Mary said it was quite open and vast, but felt like a being that had no solidity. It also felt like I was going to disappear and not know what I was used to being and knowing. Well, those are just feelings. And of course, it has no solidity, if by solidity you mean concrete form. It has no form, right? But is truth solid or not? What's more solid than truth? Self sustained, perpetual, timeless, eternal truth. What could be more solid than that? Now, our idea of solid in the mind is concrete, I can hold it, this is it, this is real. But it's not. It's a temporary flow of energy, isn't it? So that, and then that feeling that I am going to disappear. Well, that's true. You, at least what you thought you were, is going to disappear. And the disappearance of that is what the nervous system reacts to, because that's what it's believed in. It's believed in this self. That self is the organizing principle for the nervous system, right? Has this drive to keep to stay safe. And so when you challenge that, you start kind of poking that beast. Um, it starts, right. You're the whole center of the being of the nervous system is being upset, and so there's going to be some reaction. If you don't know what that reaction is, you're going to feel like you've done something wrong, or this isn't working, or I need another retreat. I got to read 5 more books. When you don't, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. And the only reason it's happening is because you have stepped, the sense of I has stepped closer to the reality of your being. And you are no longer totally identified with it. It's still mixed up. But little by little, what we're doing is separating the wheat from the chaff. We're separating the pollution from the pure water. Right? That was the very first very first significant insight I've given. That was just overwhelmed me at night on the bridge. I've told this story before, but I was clearly shown that, like a polluted river, the the water and the pollution from this level of perception are completely intermixed. Right? You can't tell them apart. But if you dive down to the level of the actual individual molecules, which actually was a vision that came to me, it's a long story. It's quite profound, and you could clearly see that the water and the pollution, not only are they not the same, they're not even touching. And that if you can remove the pollution, you won't have a restored water. You'll have the same original pristine water that was always there. It's never been touched. And this is the separation that's taking place. And this separation, separating the wheat from the chaff, that which isn't you, from the pure you, and you find the pure you has never been touched. It's never been tainted. It's never been colored or distorted, right? Except the picture in the mind was of someone who isn't that self that was tainted, but we simply believed that that image was ourself. It's not. And so that self is going to disappear. But because the nervous system is so used to referring to that as I, the feeling will be, I'm going to disappear. No, you can't disappear. You will watch the false you disappear. And the nervous system go a little crazy for a moment until it's gone and you're still here. And then what happens? The whole functioning of life just kind of reorganizes around you and goes, oh, this is even better. I like it better. You following that, Mary? G. Goodemont, happy to see you, sir, GP. Greetings from the Netherlands. Love you. Thank you. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Good to have you, sir. Good to have you. I think it's a sir. Feels like it. Maybe it's ma'am. I'm sorry if I mistook the gender. Sometimes the names aren't indicative of that. Um, where just skipped ahead on it. Jeff says, "Thank you." Okay, good. You got your freedom. Remember, freedom is what is. It's not acquired. It's realized. Julia in Brooklyn. Hello, Julia. John M. My point was the mental discipline, not magic powers. Yeah. Well, uh, hopefully, I did say that. Yes, the 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 sages even transcended discipline. There's no need to discipline when it's what you are. Right? You don't have to discipline yourself, your eye, to see it's what it does. Right? And so um, that kind of mental focus and concentration and sacrifice, really, that goes into being a Navy SEAL or a martial artist or a world class athlete, is a one pointed focus. That one pointed focus is absolutely necessary to penetrate the false sense of self and realize who you are. It's got to become the most important thing to you, as it does for everyone who achieves on that level. So, in that sense, the 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 path that leads to the sage is the same. It's just focused on the ultimate, right? Where every other is great. It's wonderful, but it's temporary. That kind of discipline and stuff uh, contributes, right, when it comes time to focus on that which truly is. So hopefully I didn't disparage that, because I have gotten questions about that. Like, it's magic, and I even got a question from somebody who wanted to be a basketball player, and they were only 5'10", and can I think myself into being 6'5". Um, I get questions like that, so forgive me if I implied that it was magic thinking. I know you're not like that, um, but I do hear it. Boy, the things that I hear. Anyway, okay, Robert, GP, you have been guiding us away from ego and mind. Is there a good use for these parts of us? Why do they exist? Oh, yes. When the mind is freed from, and the ego is freed from the sense of this being and seen simply as a functioning of life, now it becomes your servant. And all the ego is just the temporary sense of I, right? Like when I show up at the grocery store and I'm shopping, I was in a Verizon store today because I had to have something done. My mask on, right? And everybody's there with their mask on. It's a surreal scene. But I showed up as me. I'm your customer and I have this thing and I've got a problem with it and can you help me fix it and what we do and that sort of stuff. The moment that was over, I walked out the door. I wasn't that anymore. See, now what it is that we get into certain behaviors that are appropriate for the circumstance, but early on, the sense of identification solidifies itself around that identity, which is relevant for a circumstance and now becomes your permanent costume. That's the ego, right? Now, the ego in and of itself is not a problem, that it takes a form. What makes it a problem is when the ego is regarded as myself and not just a temporary form I am taking that is relevant and appropriate for the circumstances, right? But early on, that gets solidified, and I think this is who I am. And of course, it causes nothing but problems because we're trying to take this thing that worked here and make it work everywhere, which is why we run into problems. We get confused. We want to do personal development. We want to make it better, right? We've just gotten stuck in what, in fact, is a very fluid process. You don't show up as nobody. If I show up at the ice cream store, right, I don't show up as absolutely nobody, because if I'm nobody, I'm not going to pick the ice cream I want to eat, right? In my case, it's always coconut milk ice cream, but nonetheless. But of course, that's the same thing too. That's just another sense of identity. I choose that over that, but that's not what I am. That's a momentary form that takes. When it solidifies, then it becomes a problem. Now it is who I am, and I'm now stuck in there. And there's where all the suffering comes from. But when I realize it's not who I am anymore, it frees the entire system, right? It frees up mind to be even more creative, more flexible, more malleable. It lets in ideas that it wouldn't have let in before because those ideas don't apply if I'm this. And what the ego now becomes this fluid thing of now I'm a friend, now I'm a lover, now I'm an employee, now I'm an employer, now I'm a grandfather, now I'm a son, and now I'm an uncle, now I'm right. All of it, we can just move freely and not be any of those. What you are is none of those, but what you are appears as any of those. So the liberation of ourselves from the sense of identity, leading you away from ego into who you really are, liberates not only you from being stuck in what you're not, it liberates the entire system so that human life becomes more free. Human life gets liberated, right? This is a part that you don't hear a lot of non-dual teachers talk about. It's always getting away from this. But when you do, what happens? Life gets liberated. Right? Your whole nervous system has been constrained by these beliefs. So any desire or impulse or creative direction you had that contradicted this got stuck. It can't get out. So what happens when this falls apart, when this dissolves and you're no longer stuck there? Well, thump, all sorts of wonderful things can come up. Not just the traumatic material to finally be released, but a level of creativity and engagement and wonder and awe, right, that is just unbelievable. And suddenly everything is more vivid, right? I've noticed that my depth perception, everything was more flat before. Now there's depth perception that I didn't have before because my sense was constricted. Everything expands, and so in Buddhism they refer to that, to the liberated mind, as the great perfect mirror mind. Now mind isn't just a collection of thoughts; it is the vehicle of manifestation. The universe is mind. The liberated mind is the universe. It is the mind then is the aspect of the formless self that manifests the universe. Mind and God become the same thing. Mind is Brahman, right? And the ego then becomes infinite, infinite appearances of form. And so it's no longer a thing that is stuck somewhere. The ego and the form are simply this fluid thing that arises because every form has at its essence what? The sense I am. Everything has the sense I am. And remember, the word ego is simply the Greek word for I. That's all it is. It's taken on all these other meanings, right? We use the word ego. It came from Freud. It came from the writings of Freud. He's the one that used it. But in the German, he simply used the German first person pronoun, ich, right? But when it was translated in English, for some reason, the translator didn't want to just use the English word I, and so he chose the word ego from the Greek for whatever reason. Otherwise, it's just the sense of I. And if the sense of I is not stuck anywhere, it's fluid, right? Then identities come and go. And that's what has to happen. That's life. Identities come and go. I'm always in a different role, but I am never the role, right? I'm the actor on the stage, but I'm never the part that I'm playing, right? Is that answered for you, Robert? Right. So they exist as the vehicle of expression, right? When they have the sense of this being me, they're just a terrible burden. But when the me, the I, is liberated from that, they become the power of self-expression. The nervous system shifts from defensive posture into expressive posture, and this whole vehicle, which seems like such a burden when you're identified with it, becomes the most magnificent instrument of self-expression that has ever existed. It's like the ultimate piano, right? Because it can play the piano and the tuba and write and everything. It can do anything. So Jay says hello. Hello, Jay. Much love from Portland, from October Paul. Hi, October Paul. John says, I could train Muji to transform his body, his mind. Non-duality seems to have a problem with willpower, discipline, and becoming the best version of oneself in human form. It's not true. It doesn't. It takes an enormous amount of discipline and focus to penetrate the illusions and assumptions of the human mind. An enormous amount of discipline and focus, right? So it doesn't have an issue with that. It transcends it. It is completely and totally natural for us to want to be the best version of ourselves we can possibly be, and we should be. What gets in the way of that happening? What gets in the way of us doing that is the limited sense of self, right? This, in fact, there is no limit on the best. There's no such thing as a best version. It can never end. There's never a point at which it ends. This particular manifestation, this particular form, can continue to evolve forever. Form is constantly developing it forever. But there's a point at which the willpower gets transcended, because you don't need willpower to be who you are, right? You do need willpower in order to focus the attention to discover who you are. But once you do, once you know who you are, what willpower is left? What do you have to do? What do you have to force yourself? There is this sense that, okay, there's nothing more to do. No, no. the nature of life is to evolve, to grow, to expand, right? I'm doing it all the time. I'm writing better music than I wrote before. I come and go on, and I'm learning to play that little drum a bit better. I want to experience that, but I'm no longer dependent on that. Right? I am no longer. I'm always the awareness that is witnessing to life, that has given life to life. But the nature of life is constant explosion and expansion. The nature of the self is the formless uh, substratum that allows for infinite expansion. If the self is something, has a boundary, then the limits of the self are fixed. There's nothing you can do about it. But the reality of the self is that it is infinite and boundless, which means it can give rise to anything. And the way it does that is through the anything that is arising is not a fixed thing. It is a forever developing thing. It's a flower that never stops opening. Right? To our sense, we feel that as a person, the impulse towards growth and evolution. But what it really is the eternal self-expression of the infinite self, manifesting itself in any different ways, as a Navy SEAL, as a as a spiritual teacher, as a tree, right, as a rock. It all has at its root the same I am. So non-duality, and I some teachers do say, oh, there's no use, so there's no will. I don't do that. I transform it. I mutate it. I subsume it into the higher, because you don't need willpower to be who you are. And the more you know who you are, the less willpower it takes for growth to happen. And you find it's just a natural functioning. And so the discipline and the willpower and everything show up as needed, right? They don't become something you have to have. They show up when they're needed, and then they dissipate when they're no longer needed. So again, you always have this flow. So true non-dual teaching is always a subsuming, right? The greater always subsumes the lesser. If I if I have to put something away outside, explain it away, my cosmology is not comprehensive. It's a closed system. I either can explain it all, or I'm not explaining it at all. So I hope that clarifies it a bit, John, because I do not want to discredit that. Oh, believe me, I spent hours every day in practice rooms when I was younger playing, play. Discipline. It's absolutely one pointed focus. And that kind of discipline is required to penetrate this veil of the illusion, to go beyond the walls of the mind. So, thank you, sir. Yeah. And I haven't, John M. I have not gotten from you lately any of the links to various music and stuff. I've been enjoying that. So, give me some more. Um, Jay, in one of your meditations, I think somebody was asking about maintaining presence or being in the present. It came to me that the word present is easily mistaken with focus or attention of mind instead of yes, we think of presence as where our attention is, and that if my attention is focused inward now in this quiet space, now I'm present. You're always present. You exist, right? That's present. Right? Attention can be out or in, but it's always reporting to presence. It's always reporting to what is. What appears must appear to that which is not appearing, which absolutely is irreducible and indivisible. That which is. Bottom line, it can't go any further than this. God particle. This is it. This is what is. Because everybody, even the most materialistic scientist, recognizes there must be something that is. If there's an appearance, at some point we have to find what is. The only difference between the, the, the non-dual the non-dual inquiry and the scientific inquiry is that the non-dual looks for consciousness as that which is, where the scientist is looking for some particle out there and missing that which is looking for the particle. That clearly is what is. You have to say, do you not exist? I do. Well, you are what is then. That's it. That's presence. It's just all this other stuff, identification of form and all these other things that have confused that picture. But even that confused picture is being beheld by what is. And it's not confused. The confused one is in the dream. The confused one is not there looking at the dream. So thank you for that. Yes, you are presence. You cannot be. If you weren't present, there wouldn't be any focus of attention. Who'd be there to see it? Presence means existence. It means being. It means isness. It means is the absolute. Kamal. I hope I'm saying it. Is it Kamal? Kamal, I think. Yeah, Kamal. I keep going in and out of the thoughts and feelings continuously. The time spent in thoughts and feelings is continuously reducing. Apparently, things aren't settled yet. Good. Now, Kamal, just put your attention not on the thoughts and feelings, because you're not going in and out of the thoughts continuously. It's a misperception. The thoughts and feelings are appearing and disappearing continuously. But are you disappearing and appearing and disappearing continuously? Or are you always there? You have to be always there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to notice things appearing and disappearing, right? So you're not going in and out. That's the trick the mind plays, because it's seeing itself as a thought going in and out. It's seeing itself, it's looking for this stable place where it won't be going in and out. Well, it's never going to not be going in and out. But who are you? Are you the thoughts coming and going? Are you the one beholding the thoughts coming and going? So you're not spending time in thoughts. You're always out of the thoughts. They're simply appearing and disappearing. And they don't need to settle, right? The nature of thought is it's like the wind. It just keeps blowing, right? Sometimes it settles down, and then it blows up again, right? Which is great, right? If you want to fly a kite, you need some wind, right? If you're a pilot, you like that headwind. Helps you take off easier, right? The wind is nice, a cool breeze when it's hot, right? We don't want the wind to stop. We don't want thought to stop. Thought's not a problem unless I think it is. Unless I think somehow I'm supposed to get rid of thoughts. Are you unsettled? Or are you always in the same place, witnessing things coming and going? Now, if you're always in that same place witnessing, you're not coming and going. You're not disturbed. You are in permanent settlement. So it doesn't matter if thoughts settle or not. Does wonderful quiet? Sometimes they'll be there talking to you, right? Without those thoughts, I couldn't talk to you. And what happens? They arise. I don't know what I'm going to say. I know what the next thought's going to be. Up it comes. Right? I'm just kind of like the radio, right? Right? And now for the news. I'm just the vehicle through which it is coming. What I call I, that is this form. It's not actually even the I. So they arise, they subside. They arise, they say something meaningful to you, something that could change your life forever. Right? You certainly don't want those to stop coming, do you? Right? But you don't come and go with them. You are eternally settled. You are eternally here and now. So notice it's subtle the way the mind wants. Because these feelings come up, or thoughts begin to race, or excitable feelings come up. You think, I'm going out of it. No. If you identify with the feelings, it will feel as if you are going in and out of it. But in fact, you are simply watching feelings come and go, and a sense of I going in and out of it, which is also being watched. Because the sense of I is also not sentient. You're the sentience, right? You are the conscious awareness in which it's appearing. Without you, nothing can appear. And are you coming and going? Just look closely. It's obvious you're not. You are never not here. That is the ultimate stability. And at that point, thoughts are like the wind, they can come and go. Right? And sometimes you need them to come. I need thoughts to come right now. I don't think this would be very interesting for you all if I was just sitting here going, wouldn't be very useful. But in fact, completely letting it happen. Thank you, Kamal. Let me know if that nails it for you. Let's see, what are we doing here? Right. By the way, I always like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has been making donations to help me keep this going. It is pretty much how I survive. A few courses, Social Security that I get, which may or may not last, um, and the donations. Um, and specifically, a donation of if you want to take a private session with me. So those of you who would like to explore this more in depth, a very reasonable price for having a for doing a private session, and those are very very helpful in helping me keep all of this going. I sometimes wish, you know, I I lived in India, right, and grew up in India, and in the days when you know, the teacher would just sit there and people would bring, you know, eggs and fruit and stuff, and and uh, and everybody just survived like that. But we live in a different kind of culture in which we need this symbolic medium of exchange called money. So by all means, if you want to take a session with me, there's the link that you can do, and uh, just to it is really very helpful for me when I have an opportunity to really focus on you in particular. And people who've had sessions with me can testify that it really does make a big difference. So there's the link for that. It's a very simple gpwalsh.com/private, and it'll get you there. And if you just want to make a donation, that's the same thing, gpwalsh.com/donate. I made it very, very simple. So I'll take that off the screen in a second. Um, thank you, Kamal. Sneh says, um, it's an unusual name, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. If I'm really butchering it, please tell me. I do want to say it right. Um, Sometimes I become numb, even wondered how my fingers move. Everything seems mystifying, so flowing, like I forgot myself and cannot explain the experience because I'm conscious in unconsciousness, and unconsciousness in unconscious in consciousness. Sometimes I feel afraid what this is. Well, let me take this off the screen. Um, that experience, everything seeming mystifying, and you can all of a sudden seem like, now, if you've ever had experience with young children, very young children, that's exactly what we do. We're just this undifferentiated consciousness. We have no sense of a body, and then suddenly it's like, what is this? Right? It actually takes a couple years before we take possession of this and say, my body, and a little bit longer to say, me. That suddenly we begin to identify with this vehicle and that it's me. And and when we do that, as it becomes, that thought pattern becomes more and more constant and familiar, um, it stops being interesting because it's just commonplace now, right? Like anything, if you, you walk the same path to work or drive the same path to work, you may drive and all of a sudden say, "Oh wow, there's a new building," and the person with you saying, "It's been there for 5 years," right? Because the mind gets such into such a groove that it stops seeing things, right? Especially if the things are just always there, we begin to take for granted. They're not changing, they're not anything different. So the mind just kind of relegates them to the "I know what that is," and doesn't bother looking at them again. But what's happening here in through your query, in coming into a deeper consciousness, those 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 kind of repetitive patterns of the mind are beginning to fall away, and all of a sudden, whoa, this is a mystery. Where am I? This is amazing. I mean, wait a minute. And you can just begin to groove on it. And suddenly it's like you're seeing it for the first time, like a young child would, because you're no longer seeing it through the repetitive, dulled sense of the mind, right? Which is simply the nervous system, which, in order to process the sheer quantity of information it has to process, it says, "Oh, this hasn't changed, not important," relegates it down, and so it doesn't look at it anymore. It's how we get stuck in patterns. We become less creative. We become dulled, right? But when something begins to open inside of us, when something begins to explode within us, that dullness fades away. And whoa, this isn't just the same universe. This universe is constantly changing, it's constantly developing. That tree behind me is not the same as it was when we started satsang. It's growing, it's expanding, it's moving, it's dancing, it is responding to the environment in a completely unique way. It is one with it, and yet arising out of it. And so, yeah, suddenly life is like seen through the eyes of a child. It's pure delight. It's like, whoa. I remember staring at a beer cap once for like a half an hour. I just, I mean, just the wonder of it, the history, the metal, the metallurgy, the Bronze Age, how we got to this point, the ink, the shape, the bottle it's going to be put on. I mean, this incredible complex interdependency that was outside the realm of time. It was outside the realm of what we normally experience. It was suddenly, I was just in the middle of this conversion of an infinite number of possibilities, all happening simultaneously in a beer cap. In a beer cap. I even need an opener. It wasn't even a twist office, right? This is what happens. Yes. And the nervous system, which is, of course, used to things being concrete and dependable and the same, could start feeling afraid. Well, what's going on here? Don't worry about that. Yeah, of course, it's new. It's like the whole stability has been upset, but it's okay. It'll calm down. It'll restabilize as you enjoy more and more of this incredible freedom and step more and more out of just the dull repetitiveness that the psychological mind, when it's completely identified with and stuck with the sense of being a body, it simply becomes like the nervous system, just automatic and repetitive. This is not automatic and it's not repetitive. This is life spontaneously arising. Thank you, Sneh. Mary says, "Yes, you are explaining this to me, GP, and I would like to work one on one with you on this." Good. So, um, basically, oops, sorry. So basically, we are identifying with where our attention goes and not on the presence that is the one witnessing. Yes. Yes. The sense of identification, the sense of I am, the sense of self, which is itself being witnessed by something even deeper, has simply identified with what is being seen rather than what is doing the seeing. This is the this is the whole of it. When we turn around and go, "Oh, I'm what's seeing, I'm not what's seen. And that no knowledge, now I am not what I am perceiving, starts with the world around me. Then it goes into thought, feeling, and sensation, which are closer. And realize even that is being seen. And attention turns completely away from every phenomena, including the phenomena of my own sense of existence. And at that point, it can see no more. Because you, the ultimate seer, cannot be seen. The ultimate absolute perceiver cannot be perceived. The ultimate knower cannot be known. Cannot be known from the subject and object relationship. And at that threshold, our entire way of knowing changes. This is not knowing in the sense of one thing knowing another. It is non-phenomenal. It is a non-dual recognition. To get to that point where that can happen, attention has to completely withdraw from all phenomena. That is, everything that it is experiencing, to the point where it can go no further because the experiencer cannot be viewed objectively. Attention cannot see you. You can only turn away from everything that is not you. And what remains? You. Just you. The self-evident knowingness that is seeing. And it's not someone seeing. The knowingness is not an attribute. There's not something that is knowing. If there's something knowing, it would be perceivable and it would be known. So the ultimate knower is not a thing. It has no form. You have no form. That's why you can't see you. There's nothing there to see. You are pure knowing. Being and knowing are one. There's not someone knowing. There's only knowing. And I am that. What remains? Just you. And I bring it like that. It's not abstract. It's not, pure awareness, absolute being. That's abstract. It's you. Is it not you that can't be seen? Is it not you that all attention and the entire universe that it takes in, isn't it you that it's reporting to? Not some abstract principle, but you. Personal, yet not a person. Very intimate, yet not two. Very much alive, visceral, real, but not a form. Buddha put it the most beautiful way that I've never seen it in any Buddhist teaching other than the Lankavatara Sutra. He referred to it as the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. And in fact, the fourth of the Bodhisattva practices that he recommended to the advanced seekers, the Bodhisattvas, delight in the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. It is not an abstract coldness like you might hear from a lot of non-dual teachers. It is me. The street name for God is me. The sense I am that is prior even to the sense I am. The I am that is, that must be there before even the sense I am can emerge. And is that not you? This is the great realization. It's me. Me without me. Me without, completely unmixed. Me as the I principle. The I-ness of everything. Sorry. All right, I'm back. Kamal, that's right. I'm always there. It's just that I get interested in certain thoughts and feelings for a while before they go away. Right. But isn't even the interest in those thoughts being observed as well? That's all you have to know. Of course, you're going to get interested. I don't do this because I have to. I do this because I'm interested. I want to. Right. This is the joy of life. Right. But it's all actually happening, and I'm observing it, and I'm loving it. It's me and it's not me at the same time. Right. It is the expression of the me that is unmixed. Right. You are always there. Even the interest. And what is interest? Attention and interest are one and the same. Your attention doesn't go anywhere where it's you're not interested in, right? Oh, that's not, and off it goes, right? They're one, right? When interest is really seen in its purest form, it's love, right? Oh yeah, I love that. Oh man, oh I love that, right? Boom, attention when it really comes back to the heart is love. Your beloved always gets your attention, right? The one you're in love with. It doesn't take, you don't have to make yourself give you attention to them and to withdraw your attention from everything else, right? When you're in love like that, nothing, you're there. Right? It's love. Have that, have that same love in the inquiry, and you will make very rapid strides to full awakening. Right? I get interested. Yeah, even the one that's interested is appearing, and that's life, right? So you're always in this place of the completely aloof witness, and at the same time completely immersed in life, the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. It's not impersonal and cold. Right? It's just redolent with love, bathes everything in love, but it's not the same kind of personal love. The personal love, the love for this or love for that, that appears in it, and it's a form of it. But the principle of the beingness of love is just love loving itself. Everything is yourself. Mary says, I know I have said this before about a one-on-one, but it's hard right now because my family is home and I need quiet time. Can you let me know how your time schedule is in later hours for me? Yeah, if to make sure I don't forget, Mary, uh, just send an email to support at gpwalsh.com, and Alicia will get it. Or if you actually pay for the session, Alicia will automatically get that, and then she will work with you to find a time. She checks with me, and we make it work. Yeah, I mean, I've met with people very early in the morning and very late at night because they're all around the world, right? So I'm there to accommodate. So we work. Juan, hi from Dominican Republic. Hi, Juan. Good to see you. Zensmita. Hello, GP. I'm detaching from the body, and I can see others still judging and treating me with my body. I am not in a position to change that, except let it evolve as it has while I remain unaffected. The more I don't engage, the more I feel aware and liberated. It doesn't solve my material problems, but definitely helps me be at peace and away from those who want me to engage with them. It is new. Yes. It will eventually solve your problems, right? See, to the mind, solving a problem means the circumstance changes. But the reality of solving a problem is when the circumstances don't change and it's not a problem, right? The problem is an interpretation and a perception, not the circumstances. So the moment you're not concerned about them accepting you or not, there's no problem. Now, the most amazing thing about that is because it's no longer a problem, the energy of it not being a problem isn't there anymore. You're totally fluid and accepted. Life is flowing, and it tends to shift the circumstances. Now, if you approach this wanting to change the circumstances, which is what you get with metaphysics, law of attraction, and massive action, all the ways in which we try to change that, you'll miss the boat. You'll get engaged, and you'll feel that sense of not being free, of not being peaceful. But when it's completely to establish myself as I am, right? Which is a detachment from the body, not a disregarding of the body, but a withdrawing of the sense of identity from the body. So the body is just a functioning of life. It's fine. Do what it wants to do. And you'll find that there's a dynamic. Others will still think of you in the way they did. Their image of you isn't you, nor is it any of your business, really. Um, and sometimes it might even sting because you really want to have relationships with people, but they are, you simply let them be, and you maintain this environment of fluidity and peace and joy. And that's the end of the problem. That's the end of suffering. And then that energy will have an effect on the immediate environment. It's not that you're not in a position to change. You don't need to change them. You don't need to change the circumstance. The circumstances, there's no such thing as a problem in life. Problems are a creation of the mind saying it shouldn't be like this, therefore it's a problem. But if you drop that, say, well, who said it shouldn't be like this? It is like this. Well, so then obviously it should be like this. No problem. Problem solved. Circumstance the same, problem gone. That's how you approach it. And of course, notice that's completely freeing, because now I don't have to worry at all about anything anybody else does. I don't have to change circumstance. I don't have to fight. I don't have to argue. I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to take a position. None of that matters. I'm free. I'm completely and utterly free from dependency upon circumstance. And who was it that asked? Oh, Jeffrey asked earlier about freedom. That's freedom, right? If I think the circumstance have to change in order for the problem to be solved, I'm not free. I have given my power to the circumstances. But if the circumstances are irrelevant to me, they're just happening, and I'm completely my sense of well-being is unconditional. Well, I'm free. I'm just happy for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Happiness does not require a cause. Thank God. It's sad that, and tragic really, that we seek circumstances to be happy. Happiness has no cause. If I think I need a certain circumstances to be happy, I will be feeling unhappy while those circumstances don't exist. But it's my belief that created that. It's not real. Happiness is it is inherent. It's what you are. It is simply true self-knowledge. Happiness is another word for consciousness. It's what's hearing my words. It's the same thing. Okay. P.S. When I'm meditating, sometimes my hands feel like a different form, etc. Or it feels like I'm slowly falling to the right side, even though I'm not moving at all. What is that? That's just um, energy moving in the nervous system. Pay no attention to it. It's not important, right? Don't let anything that happens while you're meditating, anything in the external environment, any kind of things going on. When you're meditating and your attention's really withdrawn within, you're creating a space inside the sphere of your being, right? That is shifting the way energy is moving and flowing, right? So yes, suddenly, you're is this my hand? You might even it may seem very foreign. It's okay, right? Don't let that distract you. That's the wake on the boat. That's not where the boat is heading. Keep bringing your attention back to the one who is seeing it. Right? The mind always wants to engage in some phenomena, even seeking the phenomena. It wants some peak experience. It wants, colored lights or parting the Red Sea or the great feeling of oneness, right? That might happen, but it's an experience, right? So it will come and go. Right? This isn't about peak experience. You are not an experience. You are the inexperienceable experiencer. Right? Right? So you can, whenever those things come up and they want to draw your attention, oh, this is really, why is this happening? Or this is really cool. I want more of that. Just ask yourself, to whom is this appearing? And then your attention will go back inward, away from experience. It's not a denial of experience. It's there. It can be very fun, even, and interesting. It can be quite joyful and pleasurable, right? Right? Great. But we want to know, who am I? Who's the one that is experiencing it? And constantly bringing the attention there opens the door for self-realization. Ibex and Ocean. Hi. I think you're new. I don't recognize that name before. Hi, G. Hello. To Ibex and Ocean. Um, I have an uneasy feeling in my body recently, which I can't figure out. Even though I meditated on it, I know that the energy inside me doesn't want me to get close to the truth. I've used a lot of tools, but the feeling is very persistent. Thank you. Good. Completely let go of any intention or desire for that to go away. Your subtle underlying idea that somehow it should go away, that it's interfering with me wanting to get, actually interfering with it, even if it doesn't want it, that somehow it's interfering, and that somehow I can't get close to the truth if this is here. That's the hook. Right? Who are you? Are you not the truth? Are you ever not here? How can you get closer to the truth than being it? Right? So the mind sees the truth as something I'm going to. I'm seeing the truth as you, the one going. So it doesn't matter what the energy does. It doesn't matter if the energy doesn't want to get close to the truth. You're already there. And so you don't have to figure out this energy, just let it be there for as long as it needs to, right? Because it has nothing to do with you knowing who you are. So you can drop all the tools, you don't need them. Just let it be there. Just say, yes, okay, be there. You want to be there for the rest of my life? Fine. Because without the belief that somehow it's interfering, it has no sting. There's no problem. It's just something that arose. That's it. It's a feeling in the body that's there. It's there for a reason. Let it do its thing. When it doesn't need to be there anymore, it won't be. But don't put any story on it. Don't project anything on it that isn't true. You are the truth. You can't get closer to the truth than you already are. To whom does this feeling in the body appear? Thump. Me. I'm the truth I'm seeking. I always have been. And this can happen. Wonderful. In fact, you might even enjoy it sometimes. Just like, oh, look at that. Where are you? To whom is this appearing? Right? The one that it's appearing is the one you've been seeking. Right? What you've been looking for is where you are looking from. The seeker and the seeking have both been being witnessed by the sought. You're already there. You couldn't not be there. That is the I. That is the truth. Does that help, Ibex and Ocean? I don't know if I'm helping both of you or one of you, or if it's just and is your middle name. October Paul, hello. Is ultimate surrender necessary for enlightenment? If so, how do you do it? I'm not sure what I'm still holding on to. Oh, yes and no. Surrender happens, but you can't surrender. The ego can't surrender. It's the one thing the ego can't do. It'll do anything. It'll be humble. It'll pray. It'll process. It'll inquire. Right. But if to know God, you must disappear. You disappear. And so you don't surrender yourself. You realize that you're the self, and the one trying to surrender is very noble and a high spiritual practice, but that's not you either. What am I still holding on to? The I that's holding on to things. That's all, right? You're not holding on to anything. You're just mistaking this energy of a sense of self that's holding on to stuff as if this is somebody who I've got to finally let go. No, you, the one seeing this, lets go of the one who's holding on. And you've never been holding on to anything. It's simply who you've mistaken yourself to be. Who are you? Are you the one surrendering? Or is surrendering and holding on something being seen? If it is, who? Who's looking at it? That's you. You don't have to surrender to that. You're already it. Now, on a spiritual path, right, to somebody who isn't at this point that I can talk bluntly to, I would talk about surrender. I would talk about kind of letting other people, that idea of letting go of the one who's holding on is so foreign that I would then prepare the soil, right? I'd like prepare the soil, till it, fertilize it and stuff by getting let go of your opinions of the way things should be, right? This makes the sense of self more malleable, more flexible, more trusting. Till it finally gets to the point where you can say, now let go of you. Oh, how can I let go of me? This makes no sense. That's actually exactly what happened to Muji at his final enlightenment. That Papaji said, if you want to know God, you must vanish. And he goes, how can I vanish? And he just ground in him to the point he was going to leave. Who is this guy? He's not Ramana. And he was going to leave, right? And he just sat down, and all of a sudden it was like, how do I disappear? Suddenly, the I he thought he was disappeared. He looked, there's no person here. The I you think you are disappeared because the actual I cannot disappear. The I, that the actual I is God. You can only know God by being God. Otherwise, you're knowing about, which is thoughts, concepts. How do you know? You be. Being and knowing. You disappear. That is, the you thought you were disappeared, and you find you can't disappear, and you are what you've been seeking. Oh, Nazarene says, sorry, G, I forgot to switch. Ibex and Ocean is me. Okay. That's great. Yeah, Ibex and Ocean. You're Ibex and maybe David is Ocean. Or the other way around. Very cute. Um, anyway, good to see you. I will know that from now on. Jay, I can remember when I was in my early teens, I used to cry and use all kinds of tactics to know God because I read somewhere if you are sincere enough, you'll know in 3 days. The egoic patterns are very cunning. Amen, brother. Amen. Very cunning. Very cunning. Because the ego is convinced it's actually someone. It's not actually a thing that's cunning. Gonna take over the world. It's not that kind of a Hollywood character of the diabolical laugh. It's nothing like that. It's just these patterns of thought are all revolving around this sense of self. So it's constantly trying to refer back to that sense of self. That sense of self does not exist. It is simply a thought. And so you can just kind of let go of all of those tactics because you already are that. The ego will have you forever becoming that, nobly seeking that, right? Trying to know God in 3 days, right? If you just use all these tactics and everything, you'll know God in 3 days. Who's going to know God? Only God knows God. Only awareness is aware. Only consciousness is conscious. There isn't something else that gets to be aware. Are you not aware? That's it. That's who it is. The one that's hearing my words right now is God. Sophie, I missed your question? Okay. Ah, you're right, I did. Oh, terribly sorry. Thank you for poking me. Dear GP, in meditation, would you recommend paying attention so lightly on presence, which allows presence to flow? Would this lead to merging? Thank you, Sophie. Remember, the merging is an experience. You can't merge with what you already are. This is the place we keep bringing attention back to. We keep bringing attention away from all experience. And as we do that, it comes to rest, the penultimate place, the place before the last, on simply that sense of being, which is even more subtle than thought, emotion, and sensation. There's this very subtle energetic sense of being. That's presence. And yes, just lightly being with that sense of presence will eradicate all suffering because that is you. And for many, that's as far as it goes for a while. But then something goes, well, wait a minute. Even this most subtle sense of presence is itself being seen. Oh, what's that? Well, at that point, even that sense of presence becomes a phenomena that you're experiencing. And what's left? Me. Just me. Nothing but me. Not even a phenomenal me. No thoughts of me. Just pure, absolute meanness. So, yes, being with that sense of presence, so quiet, so constant, right? Allowing that to simply be and allowing everything else to flow around that will ultimately lead you to that question, to whom is even that appearing? And that's what one could call the final merging, but it's a realization that nothing's merged because there were never two in the first place. I am that. Does that answer it for you, Sophie? I'm afraid a few times today it's actually hard to hold myself here. I want to kind of just disappear a bit, but I have to be here. I have to stay around for you guys. Um, Kamal, why some get it so easily, while others spend years and still don't get it? I don't know. Conditioning, karma. Um, I don't know. Uh, I could be jealous. Ramana Maharshi, 16 years old, boom, right? But you have no idea what happened, really what was leading up, the conditions, past lives, the whole thing. We really don't know, right? It is and it can be and probably is a distraction to concern yourself with stuff like that. You know, um, Christ after the resurrection, and he had appeared to disciples. He was actually walking with one of his disciples. I think it was John, or no, it was somebody else. And they were talking about John. He said that one over there. Um, is he going to get it? Is he? awakened. Well, will it take him a while? And Christ's response was simply, "What does it matter if he waits forever till I come? Follow thou me." And of course, the me he's referring to is not the person of Jesus. That's a terrible, terrible distortion. It's the same place I'm pointing you to is what Jesus was referring to. Follow that. Forget about whether somebody else takes a long time or a short time, right? It's not worth it. If you get it when you're 12 or you get it when you're 72, who cares, right? And I can see by your picture you're not 72. So don't worry about it, right? Yeah. Don't even engage with thoughts like that. They're not important. Do you get it? Who are you? And this question, to whom is that even appearing? And turn back to the one seeing it, because all questions arise from there. Right? So I'm not. It's not that I'm trying to discount your answer. It's just that for you right now, it's not important. It's a distraction. Right? Somebody else I may need to engage with them on some level, but for you, it's not necessary. Forget about it. Follow thou me. Right? Follow the Christ idea, the Buddha nature, back to your source, and find that you are that Christ. You are that Buddha. Jace, she said, Mary, glad to be of help. Okay. Ava, thank you, G, for these, dear G, for these satsangs and meditations, being so meaningful, bringing meaningful support. Gratitude and love to you always. Thank you, Ava. You always touch me with your gratitude. You are so expressive of your gratitude. You're such a dear. Zensmita, Muji says that when resistance arises, you are up to something. No, you are on to something. What does he mean? Yeah, not up to something. Like the mischievous thing. No, he said you're on to something. Because if you weren't challenging that habitual sense of identity, resistance wouldn't need to resist. There'd be nothing to resist, right? You just feel like everything's okay. But the moment you start to challenge these habitual patterns, the protective mechanism is going to arise to try to maintain them. And that's what we feel is resistance. It's mechanical. It's not something resisting, okay? It is simply something is challenging the stability of this system. And if nothing's challenging, if there's no resistance, you're just boom, right? I mean, if nothing's happening in the environment, even though the potential for a very extreme reaction to the environment, it isn't triggered, right? So we feel calm. Doesn't mean the triggers aren't there. It just means they're not triggered. The reactive program is still quite there, ready to be activated, but nothing in the environment has done that, has hit the button, right? But when something in the environment to which this particular program has been assigned to that event, right? Press this key and this happens. Once that happens, this reacts. That's what we feel as resistance. So when you're doing your inquiry and you're doing it right, you are challenging the mechanism and it's going to start to react. It's going to start going, whoa, hey, wait a minute here. And that's what you feel. So that's actually an indicator that you're onto something, right? Because the resistance wants to distract you, push you away, saying, this doesn't feel good. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing something. This should feel good, right? Right? And Muji is trying to make it very clear. No. You're in the right spot. Boom. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. This is what happens. And boy, for decades now, it's one of the main things I've done as a spiritual teacher is say people, it's okay. It's supposed to happen. This is the reactive pattern. This is part of the plan, part of the plan, part of the pattern. You're not doing anything wrong. Because without that kind of guidance from a real teacher, you're going to think, oh, I must be doing something wrong. Aren't I supposed to be feeling blissful and peaceful and, rainbows and dolphins and all that? No, No. Christ said it beautifully. He said, I come not to bring peace to the world, but a sword. He wasn't referring to war out here. He was referring to this. I'm not bringing peace to what isn't true. I'm bringing a sword to what isn't true. But when what isn't true is entrenched um, in the system, it's going to, it's going to start putting up its dukes and take the defensive posture. This is where you simply meet it with persistence and utter unmovability, but also enormous compassion, right? Yeah, this is what it does, right? So you're not even fighting with the resistance. You're loving the fact that that you're seeing the truth, and that this is how the system reacts. It's just a protective mechanism. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be, in fight with. It's just the way it is. And so you embrace this aspect of the human being with great compassion. And then that protective mechanism, which is now resisting awakening, little by little begins to support it. It just becomes more malleable and patient and open and spacious. And so compassion and love, right, are the balm that makes this easy. So just when I think I'm liberated, I see there's some demons from the past habits. Is that the universe testing me? Not, it's not like the universe is testing you, right? It's the reactive patterns. They're coming up. And in a sense, it's good that they come up because they're challenging your liberation. You are liberated. You've never actually been in bondage. That's the truth. But that's what's realized. So you're describing exactly the experience so many people have, that I, you know, that the teachers, that the reason most of us need a teacher. You can't get it from a YouTube video. Um, is when I think I'm liberated, that is there's an opening takes place. The shell's been cracked open. It's like, oh, I'm not that. But when that happens, the entire inner environment gets liberated, and all sorts of stuff. And that, as Muji would say, you're going to be burping up all sorts of things. Sometimes he even says vomiting up all sorts of things, because there's all sorts of trauma and energy and stuff that's been locked in the body that needs to be liberated, so that your whole being becomes expressive of the truth. And it's not just the sense of liberation as at one level of vision. It actually goes and colonizes the entire system. So it's not that the universe is testing you, right? It's simply that it's having to let go of this position, and all sorts of things are arising because of that. Now, you can also see it as being, oh, I'm being invited now to strengthen that conviction, to actually strengthen my liberation, to strengthen my realization up to the point where it's total. So you could see it, yes, it's a testing, but I see it more like not a test, like you're going to pass fail. It's more like, I've been bench pressing 100 pounds, and I can do 10 reps now. It's time to put on another 10. Right. So now I'm back to, maybe 4 at 110, until all of a sudden, oh, now I can do 8 to 10 at another 10. You don't stop, right? That's it. I've reached the pinnacle, right? But eventually in this, there is a sense of just, oh, this whole beautiful thing has all been for my benefit, has all been to awaken. And the awakening finds that I've never actually been asleep. Does that help you, Smita? Does that clarify it for you? It's quite an honor to be actually clarifying what Muji says. It's, I kind of see myself with him as like a candle standing next to the sun. Having been in his presence, it's like nothing I've ever experienced. David, hello, David. Hey, G. I loved what you said in IR about integration of the masculine and the feminine. That's right. I did cover all of that, didn't I? For me, it's helped in understanding my need for both spirituality and, from time to time, self-development. Yeah. I used to see it as a contradiction. Now I am accepting that it's simply where I am now, and that's okay. It's a case of both, not always either or. Yes. P.S. You made Nazarene laugh. Love from Ireland. Good. I love that. Um, yeah, it's so natural for us, for the human to want to grow and develop. I'm still doing it, right? I'm still doing it. Learn some new skills about trying to get this garden behind. This is actually a beautiful rock garden back here with some fountains and stuff. We're trying to get it going. So I'm learning new skills. I love doing it. And you need to do that. The human needs to develop, right? You don't want the child to remain a child and say, there's no need for development. We wouldn't be talking, right? So they're not contradictory. But the development of the human being happens against the background of the infinite potential of beingness, which allows for the constant unfoldment. So, what appears as a human being developing is actually the infinite beingness unfolding itself. And so, even what appears to be development gets subsumed into this glorious majesty of self-existence. The ultimate beingness is not flat; it is emptiness, meaning it is free of inherent characteristics which would limit it. But it being unlimited, it is the infinite potential for everything, and that infinite potential is forever unfolding it and revealing itself, always reflecting its true nature, revealing the nature of life, of love, of truth in form, and that form is continuously, it never sits still. It is forever developing itself, unfolding from within, uh, uh, the seed within itself, because of its connection to its inexhaustible source. And so all of life, improvement, growth, evolution, are all the reflection of the infinite, that of the infinite potential, which is the what is. And this is what is appearing as form. And so, yes, there's no contradiction whatsoever. Just remember who you are, that you are not developing. The self does not develop. The developing gives expression to the self. And now they're one. They're not even either or, they're not even both. They're one. The two faces of exactly the same essence. And glad you're laughing, Nazareth. Jay, I can't see clearly, but Kamal's profile pic looks like similar to Malayalam actor Niven Pali. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. But yeah, it does look like could be an actor, doesn't he? Yeah, he's got that nice, rugged, handsome look. Uh, Sophie, yeah, where'd you go, Sophie? There you go. Yes, thank you. It was helpful. I saw clearly that my contraction was due to deep pattern of unworthiness to love, and was surprised that despite the mess of me, I am loved as present, compassion as self, for self. Yes. Yes, that sense of being unworthy for love, it gets instilled in us very early on. It's one of the things I cover a lot in the EFT courses. It gets installed in us very, very early. That's the sense of self, that I am less than. Now, who's that I that is less than? Well, that I that less than is the false sense of self. But that's what we come to see through. And as we come to see through it, the sense of being unworthy that gave rise to that self, which is so very painful that it's been suppressed, now begins to come to the surface. And if we maintain that sense of compassion and love, it can fully come to the surface, and that sense of unworthiness can finally, once and for all, be healed. And then you can know a level of intimacy in relationship that you've never known before, because it's all you. It's not, you're not being somebody in order to be loved. You are fully yourself, are loved as yourself, and there's nothing more humanly satisfying. And that too is the expression of this wholeness of love. Beautiful. Despite the mess of me. Yes, that mess of you isn't you. And you can even love the mess, right? That's the beauty of this. Suddenly, even the messed up version of you becomes totally lovable. Oh my God, so lovable. Picasso said that the lover and the artist know the beauty of imperfection. That says it. You know, the things that we, oh, I'm so imperfect, become, oh my God, those are just me. Wonderful idiosyncrasies that make this form unique, right? And that I am the source of all form. Kamal says, thank you so much, G. I'm very much drawn to non-duality since I was a child. I could not explain back then what was happening to me. I started observing my thoughts and wondered who they belonged to. Same thing happened to me. Matter of fact, I find that many people actually have that experience, but it eventually gets conditioned out of us. You know, thought tends to solidify into these patterns, and those kinds of inquiries that happen so naturally as children, because we aren't solidified, we're very fluid, right? And they're brilliant. You know, when you look at it and go, wait a minute, that's a very mature thought. Well, it's not a very mature thought. We associate it with maturity because later on, if we manage to revive that and we understand it, you see it now from a mature perspective, but it's a very natural thought. Where'd that come from? I used to ponder non-existence. How could I non-exist? And I go, wait a minute, I'm still here pondering it. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. No, non-existence. It was just like impossible, right? And so, yes, it means that probably in several lifetimes before this, this inquiry has been deepening, and I suspect this lifetime may be the end of that for you. That it's time for you to wake up fully. Sensmina says, yes, thank you. Mary says, thank you, GP, for mentioning the issue of vomiting. Has that been an issue for me? You just clarified it. Good. GP, do you think the ability to see someone else's awakening is relative? Is from awareness. Actually, the seeing of awakening in someone else, like a sage, like a Buddha or a Muji or somebody like that, is actually the awakening in you that recognizes itself. So yes, the ability to see someone else's awakening is only relative if you see yourself as a person seeing somebody else's awakening. Remember, that which sees is the awakening, right? Awareness is the only thing that sees. There's not somebody else seeing, and then an awakening takes place. It's always awareness, aware of awareness. So when you recognize the truth in somebody, like a teacher or a guru, that's the truth in you recognizing itself, right? Because that's the real nature of the teacher. They're simply you reflected back to you, appearing in a form that the current level of understanding can receive, and therefore break that boundary of the current level of understanding into the infinite understanding, the true understanding. Same to you, Kamal. Zenzmita, what does Buddha mean by dukkha and suffering? Is it material or compassion? Osho says first you need to know what is suffering, which is basically compassion. How is it different than Buddha dukkha? Suffering is not compassion, right? Suffering is identification. The word dukkha is a Sanskrit word, and the word dukkha is the word suffering, right? That's our English word suffering. It came from another direction, but the English word suffering that appears in all the Buddhist texts comes from the word dukkha in Sanskrit, also in Pali, which is the language Buddha spoke. They both have the same word and they both mean the same thing. They refer to suffering, and what it refers to in the Sanskrit is dukkha refers to the hub of a wheel that has gotten out of true and can't turn. So it's stuck in a position. The moment I identify with something, I am stuck in a position. I have now restricted my access to anything that isn't in that position, and that's suffering. Suffering isn't the circumstances, it isn't what's happening. The cause of suffering is taking a position that sticks me somewhere and therefore cuts me off. And in this position, I interpret that event shouldn't be happening, right? I have created a sufferer. The event's just happening. It's neutral. It does not create suffering. This was the primary insight of the Buddha expressed in the Four Noble Truths. Right? So compassion is when we recognize that the sufferer is simply stuck in a position and we no longer fight with it, whether it be in us or in somebody else. Suddenly this compassion emerges that, oh my God, we're all stuck. This is it. This is the wholeness, the whole there is of suffering. I'm stuck. And at that point, when I begin to let go of the position, which is always limiting, restricting, judgmental, the very act of letting go of a position starts to put me back into flow. And what's that? Compassion, awareness, realization. All of a sudden, I am no longer stuck anywhere. I'm not holding on to a position. So all positions become relative. I allow all positions to be there. I don't judge any position whatsoever. It's just a position. I am compassionate. That's what compassionate is, that flow. Is that clear for you, Zansmita? Sue, hello, Sue. Thanks so much, GP. I feel so free, which is what I've been looking for my whole life. Wow, what a realization. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Yes, this is what we've all been looking for our whole lives. This is what we're looking for. What you're looking for is you. Right? So let's have some fun with this, Sue. Who feels free? Even this feeling of freedom, to whom is that appearing? There's some place even deeper waiting for you. What I've been looking for your whole life, yes. Oh, yes, this freedom. Now, that freedom is not just a feeling that will come and go. To go one step further to who it is that this freedom is simply the perfume of, the manifestation of. What's the substance of this freedom? What's behind that lens? You. Kamal says I could watch you speak forever. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've been having a hard time holding myself here today. I just kind of want to. I think when this is done, I'm just going to go away for a bit. Yeah. Zensmita says, excellent, thank you. Good. I'm glad that clarifies it for you. It is so important to have a teacher who can clarify these things for you. So important, right? You can't get this from books. Well, rarely. Somebody's got to be really primed. I mean, that fruit has just got to be ready to fall off the tree, and then a book, a thought, something can do it. But for the most part, we need somebody to guide us through this. Right? To take, watch that right over there. It's often depicted as the shepherd, right? With the shepherd's crook. And the shepherd's crook is what searches for the holes to keep the sheep from falling into a hole. That's the shepherding of the flock. In fact, the word Gregory, which is my actual name, refers to that. It's one of the definitions of it: vigilant and shepherding, one showing where the holes are. So I guess I'm kind of living up to the name. And Ava says, totally agree with Kamal. All right, yes, 2 hours and 20 minutes later. I hate letting go of this. I do, but it is time. So I'll be doing some more early morning meditations. Please like and share, and please do help me support the work through the donations and through private sessions. That is how it's sustained. I will never put any kind of advertising on any of my videos. I will never try to monetize that. So I completely rely on this kind of interaction between us. So thank you all. Thank you all so much. Love you all. Namaste.